Hello, my Belfast 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing tonight? Hopefully, everyone's had a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another Mr. Ballin video. This one is titled "Top 3 Photos Top 3 Photos with Disturbing Backstories, Part 11." All right, let's go ahead and get into today's story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cut up with someone special. Let's get intrigued. No, I don't like that one either. I don't. No. We'll figure it out. Leave comments and suggestions below. Yeah. Sorry.
Today, I'm going to share with you 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the picture or pictures that are famously associated with them. But before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious deliberative story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you...
Old video, yes. Yes.
Please place a Kick Me sticky note on the back of the like button shirt. Also subscribe to this channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories. In 2014, the United States Navy decided it was time to decommission one of their old frigate ships, and so they sent it to a dock to be broken down for scrap. In order for workers to actually be able to access the underside of the ship and actually begin to break it down, they would need to dry dock the ship, which meant the ship would basically drive into this special walking corral where the doors would shut behind it, the water would drain out from underneath, and the ship would be left resting on these huge wooden blocks that elevated it off the ground. And with no water in there, workers were able to get underneath the hull and could access every part of the ship without obstruction. It's important to note for this story that when a ship is...
That intrigued me. I mean, I kind of figured that's something what they did, but to actually hear it and see like a little picture, that was pretty cool. I never really... You wondered these things sometimes. It's like they're little things in life.
There is only one way on or off. It's this ramp called a gangway that leads from the dock onto the deck of the ship. Besides that, there is nowhere else for you to get on the ship. And if for some reason you really wanted to get on and couldn't use the gangway, you could in theory try to run and leap from the dock to the ship. There's a pretty significant gap there all the way around, but you could try the jump. But if you weren't successful at grabbing onto the ship, you would fall multiple stories, probably to your death, because there's no water in the dry dock. So this old frigate ship that was being decommissioned was officially dry docked in July of 2014. The first group of people that went on board the ship to begin dismantling it were military personnel. They were in charge of removing all of the sensitive equipment before civilians were allowed to go on board. The military personnel begin to wrap up, and it's getting late in the day, and they tell the foreman, who's in charge of all of the civilian workers that are going to be going on and finishing this decommissioning of the ship, they go to the foreman and they say, hey, we're done, we're wrapped up for the night, your workers are good to go, they can get on here tomorrow. The foreman would send a message to his boss that night, letting him know that they were on track to start work the next day. The boss would respond and say, hey, can you go on there tonight and take pictures of all the different workstations so we know how many people that we need to place in different segments of this big ship. So the foreman walks onto the ship and proceeds to take hundreds of pictures all over the inside of the ship. Now, the ship itself was pitch black inside. There was no electricity, and it was nighttime. So he had a flashlight the whole time. But whenever he took a picture, he would turn his flashlight off and then use the flash on his camera before going back to his actual flashlight. So all night he's going room to room taking all these pictures, and at some point he realizes he's photographed everything he needs to. So he leaves, he goes back to his office, he uploads the pictures, and he sends them to his boss. His boss wrote back almost immediately and just said, who's the guy with the axe? Now, the foreman has no idea what he's talking about. He was just in the ship by himself for a couple of hours and didn't see anyone. So he reads the email again to make sure he read it correctly, and he sees that his boss has actually attached the picture he is referring to. Here is this guy clearly clutching an axe in a hallway that he was just in. And even creepier is the foreman is looking at where this picture was taken, and it was relatively early on in his photo shoot. And he had walked past the exact area where this guy is poking his head out of, which means the whole time he was down there, This guy with an axe was there with him. They reviewed the security footage of a camera that was aimed directly at the ramp, the one entrance in and out of the ship. And from the time the foreman left, no one else left. So they don't know how he got on or how he got off without being detected, but somehow he did.
Maybe that old timer used to work on the ship and he knows shit you'll never know. That's fucking creepy though, bro. No. I would never walk through there by myself again. Chainsaw. Chainsaw beats axe every time. Unless, even throwing. Have you ever? No.
In 2014, Alan Ruby was a 19-year-old freshman studying political science at the University of Oklahoma. Despite being relatively modest and soft-spoken in person, on social media, he projected this lifestyle of wealth and grandeur. He'd oftentimes post pictures of exotic sports cars and expensive watches and clothes, and he would travel the world to Paris, London, New York City, and take all these pictures showing off this incredible life he had. He really wanted people to believe that he was this fabulously wealthy, successful guy. Alan was only able to project this phony lifestyle on social media because he was spending his father's money. His father was a successful businessman who was also the publisher of a newspaper that was quite successful, and so Alan would just spend his money, and then even after his father would give him money, Alan would steal his credit card and additionally rack up thousands of dollars of credit card debt. But as media began to shift away from print media to almost all digital, a lot of newspapers began to fail because they weren't able to transition to digital. And his father's newspaper was not making that transition very well, and they were losing money left and right. And so Alan's father told everybody in his family, with a focus on Alan, that we all need to cut back on our spending because money's tight right now and it's unclear if it's going to turn around. So we got to be careful with how much money we do have. Alan acted like he was going to cut back on his lavish lifestyle, but in reality, he wasn't going to. He was totally addicted to spending money and giving off this vibe that he was so wealthy and successful. And so around this time, Alan steals his grandmother's credit card and secretly leaves the country and goes to Paris to have this vacation on his own. He's taking these pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower and he's spending all this money. And his father finds out that he's stolen this credit card and he's furious. And instead of waiting for Alan to come home and saying, don't do that again, he decides he's going to send him a message that he's going to remember. And he calls the police. Alan gets charged with theft. He pleads guilty and he has to go before a judge who sees that he has no criminal record. So he kind of goes easy on him. And he says that you need to pay back all the money you spent to your grandmother. And you need to go to an addiction program to try to break this habit of yours, to stop spending all this money. After Alan leaves court, his father felt like he finally got the message. It seemed like it had finally...
Look at it like this. This is going to happen one of two ways. Either you're one of those people who like to spend money, or you're one of those people who just don't. Like, hold a penny so tight, booger falls out of Abraham Lincoln's nose kind of tight.
Gotten through to him that this was a really big problem.
I would not want to. I'm too poor to have a shopping addiction. I am the squeak when I walk type person. I'm no, I do no. I'm relatively cheap as shit. I enjoy it though. But oh my god,
And he felt like he had made the right decision in calling the police. But in reality, Alan hadn't changed at all. As soon as he got back from court, he was stealing from people outside of the family. He was taking loans from loan sharks. All of this just to keep up with his phony appearance he portrayed on social media. On October 9th, 2014, Alan owed $3,000 to a particular loan shark and had no way of paying it back. So instead of asking his parents for money, which for him would have been too embarrassing, he decides the best course of action is to kill his entire family. And so he strolls in.
hold on. Ho.
Of his phony appearance he portrayed on social media. On October 9th, 2014, Alan owed $3,000 to a particular loan shark and had no way of paying it back. So instead of asking his parents for money, which for him would have been too embarrassing, he decides the best course of action is to kill his entire family.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I heard that whole bunch of bullshit correctly. You would rather murder your family basically for $3,000 than be embarrassed by telling them you fucked up? Dude, you could give me like $3,000 and I would have told him, hey, he fucked up. Oh, some people are just stupid, bro. What the hell?
And so he strolls into his home and he shoots his mom dead, he shoots his sister dead, then he waits for his dad to come home and he shoots him dead. Because his big plan is, with his whole family gone, he's going to become the sole heir to the family's estate, and that will be enough money to not only pay off this $3,000 debt, but have a little left over so he can go on vacation to Paris again. So after he's committed this horrible crime, he leaves his family where they are. He goes and takes the surveillance footage from inside the house. It was on a DVD, takes the DVD out, takes the murder weapon, leaves the house, chucks the DVD and the weapon into a lake, and proceeds to drive to Dallas, where he checks into a very fancy hotel and meets up with friends and parties the whole weekend. His friends that were with him that weekend would later tell investigators that Allen seemed totally normal. There was no red flags. There was no indication that anything was wrong. He was just laughing it up and having a great time the whole weekend. The following Monday, when Allen's father doesn't show up for work, the police are notified. They go to the house and they find the Ruby family. When police went out and got Allen and brought him back to the station to chat with him and tell him what happened and see if he knew anything, his sad reaction to his whole family now being deceased was apparently so insincere that officers almost immediately assumed that he was probably the guy that did it. Ultimately, Allen would confess the prosecutor wanted to push for the death penalty, but Allen's remaining living family members actually said, don't.
Hold on, I need to hear that one more time just to make sure. Hold on.
And see if he knew anything. His sad reaction to his whole family now being deceased was apparently so insincere that officers almost immediately assumed that he was probably the guy that did it.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, but how are you going to sound so insincere about couldn't you fake it like a little bit more? Oh shit. Sir, you're just such a general dick that no, we're pretty sure you killed him, you piece of shit.
Ultimately, Allen would confess, and the prosecutor wanted to push for the death penalty, but Allen's remaining living family members actually said, don't do the death penalty. We don't want to risk that not happening. We want to see justice served right now. Can we create a plea agreement where he gets life in jail, but there's absolutely no way for him to get paroled, no matter how good his behavior is, no matter how old he is, no matter what, he can't ever get out of jail. And so they did. They created that plea agreement. They gave it to Allen to sign. He signs it, and as they're walking out of the courtroom, his last remaining family members disown him and say, may God have mercy on your soul, and they leave. This is the picture that Allen uploaded to his Instagram account just hours after killing his entire family. They're all lying on the ground in his house at the time this picture is being taken. He's in this fancy hotel room with his friends, and the caption reads, college wouldn't be half as fun without these two peaches. Hashtag best friends.
That bitch slapped it. Oh my god. You don't even know, bro. Like,
one night in the early 1950s, a little boy named Issei Sagawa was having this dream where
his name was what?
One night in the early 1950s, a little boy named Issei Sagawa was having this dream where he and his brother were being boiled alive to be eaten. Sagawa says when he woke up, he immediately began fantasizing about what it would be like to be on the other side of that, to be on the outside with a human inside of the pot that you're boiling, that you're going to eat. And he became totally obsessed with the idea of eating another person. By the time he was in first grade, he would find himself staring at his different classmates' legs, and his mouth would be watering because he wanted to take a bite out of their leg. For 3 decades, he was able to suppress that urge, but in 1981, those cannibalistic urges would get the better of him. One summer day while he was in Tokyo, he saw this woman that he wanted to eat and he couldn't help himself, and so he began following her down the road, and he saw her go into her apartment.
I mean, I'm sure she would have been down for him to eat her. Just, I think they might have two different kind of ideas on the situation. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
He waited for a minute, went around back, and climbed in the window. And when he got inside, she was asleep. He hadn't thought of a plan for what he was going to do once he was inside.
Just start shaking some salt and pepper on it and just like, hot sauce. I mean, you have to have hot sauce. That'd be awfully plain. I'm just saying, like.
And so he's just standing there thinking, well, now what do I do? How am I going to eat her? What am I going to do next? And as he's sitting there wondering what to do next, she wakes up and she screams, and he runs away. After this breaking and entering incident, Sagawa would actually seek help. So he goes to a psychiatrist and he says, this is what I did. I snuck into her house because I wanted to eat her. And the psychiatrist would end up telling Sagawa's family that I have to label him a high risk to society because he's not just thinking about doing these things, he's already acting out these fantasies. Now, Sagawa's father was extremely wealthy and powerful. When he heard this from the psychiatrist, he was like, no, we're not going to do that. And so using his power and influence, he was able to kind of cover up what the psychiatrist.
It's just the way you said it. So your son is going to be like god awful in real life, like in the world. No, cannot handle this motherfucker. We're just going to mark him as, menace to society. Just, just be done with it. No. No. What? I just going like, no. Oh.
And he shipped his son to Paris. Once Sagawa landed in Paris, he enrolled at the Sorbonne University and began studying literature. Despite having sought help for his cannibalistic urges, when he was in Paris, he started having that urge again and he couldn't control it. And instead of going to another therapist or psychiatrist, he begins to look for another victim. Sagawa considered himself short, weak, and ugly, and so he was actually looking for a tall, beautiful Western woman so he could absorb their energy and somehow become a bigger, better version of himself. And so he began looking around Paris for tall, beautiful.
Nah, motherfucker thinks he's fucking Venom or some bullshit. He needs to absorb people. Damn.
Women that he could potentially eat, but no one seemed like a good fit until he met Renee Hartfeld. Renee was a tall, beautiful 25-year-old Dutch student who was going to school with Sagawa at Sorbonne. In order to get close to her, Sagawa would ask his father if he would give him some money so he could hire Renee to be his personal tutor. His father gives him the money, Sagawa hires Renee, and they strike up this working relationship together. And over time, Sagawa would build trust with Renee, they would become friends, and at some point he asked Renee if she'll actually come over to his apartment, something they had not done yet. And she's sitting in his apartment with her back turned to him. He leaves the room and comes back with a rifle, and he tries to fire it, but it jams. And she hasn't heard him do this. And so he's standing there, and his weapon's now jammed. He hasn't fired it, and he just puts the weapon away and comes back out and acts like nothing's happened. And he's sitting there wondering, is this a sign that I'm not supposed to do this? But at the end of the night, when she finally left, he decides, you know what, I've got to go through with this. I have to eat her. And so the next night, he gets her to come over again. He gets the rifle out when she's sitting with her back to him once again.
He kills her, cooks her up, takes a good bite of her, sits there and then goes, I'm a vegan. That would be so shitty. Kill someone to eat, just to eat them, to realize, nah, just take meat, fuck it. I'm just going to eat plants forever. I'm having a day, people. Having a day.
At this time, the rifle fires. Only for an instant, he felt really bad and thought, maybe I should call an ambulance. But then he stopped himself and he said, "You've waited so long for this. You've got to just go through with it." He immediately tried to take a bite out of her, but it was too difficult and unpalatable. So he calmly leaves his apartment, he goes to the store, he gets a blade, he comes back, and he's able to begin removing pieces of Renee so he can eat them. Over the next 2 days, Sagawa would eat most of Renee, and he would take pictures of himself throughout the entire experience. When he finally felt full, he left a couple pieces still in his freezer, but put the rest of her in a suitcase and went to dump her in a lake. But as he was wheeling these heavy suitcases around town, people saw them, and it just drew a lot of suspicion. And at some point, someone must have called the police. They show up, they ask him what's inside the suitcase, they open it up, and there's Renee. When questioned about it, he just...
And all defenses, that what's left of her? What's left of her? Oh, God. Why, I would never want to eat nobody. No.
Said, "I killed her to eat her flesh." Sagawa awaited trial for 2 years in a French prison. When he finally went in front of a French judge, when the judge read the details of this crime, it seemed so crazy and outrageous that the judge decided there's no way Sagawa can be sane. And so he was deemed insane and unfit to stand trial. He was ordered to go to a mental institution where he would be held indefinitely. Shortly after that, the French deported Sagawa back to Japan, where they expected him to remain in a mental institution for the rest of his life. But that didn't happen because the French dropped his case and his documents were sealed. And when he arrived in Japan, the Japanese could not get access to his court documents. And so they did not have a case against Sagawa. And so they had to let him walk free. And so in 1986, Sagawa checked himself.
What kind of bullshit is that? Because, man, I could never get that freaking lucky. Let me kill someone and eat them. I would be under the fucking jail. Then, oh yeah, here's this. Oh, we lost everything, so be free, Bambi. Oh.
Out of the
How that happens? How? People literally are getting away with murder. How? Not even on my best day, people. Not even on my best day.
Japanese mental institution that he had been sent to, and he's been free ever since. This is a picture of what police discovered when they opened up Sagawa's fridge inside of his apartment in Paris. This is a picture of his kitchen inside of that apartment, where you can clearly see plates and different utensils that were all used to eat Renee. This is a picture of the suitcase that Sagawa was lugging around that police showed up and asked him to open and found Renee inside of. And this is Sagawa today, walking freely in Tokyo, even though he blatantly killed and ate someone and openly admits to it and has even profited off of it. He's written books and he's been featured on TV shows. He's even been called in to be a food critic. But what's even more horrifying is that Sagawa openly says that before he dies, he's going to do this again. He can't live with himself unless he eats at least one more person. So that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Let me know.
What kind of fuck shit is that? Why? No. No. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go in there and throw up a few times, brush my teeth vigorously, and pretend this story here just never happened. I don't know what it is. I can handle a lot of shit until we start talking about people eating people. Then I get the hooves. I don't know what the hooves are, but I get the hooves. Alright. If y'all enjoyed today's video as much as I did, except for the whole, eating out part. Okay, last horrible shitty joke, I promise. For tonight. Not ever, just literally for now. That was the last one for now. Alright. If you enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please leave a thumbs up. If you are a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, or deranged, think about subscribing. And as always, be good on one another. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye. I just don't even know. What the one cannibal clown say to the other cannibal clown? No one cares, I hate clowns. Bye.